It's a great day to crochet. Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to show you how I have evolved into what I consider a pretty quick or fast crocheter. And I wanted to show you some of my tips and tricks to maybe help some of you who feel like you're really slow in crocheting. So first of all, one of the things when you want to crochet quickly is making sure that your yarn is in either a center pull or you're able to pull it quickly. And really, ideally, you don't really want to have to stop and pull it. So every time I start a crochet project, I either cake it up because the center of the cake is so much easier to pull than from the middle of a skein, for instance. But you can always, reach in and grab the middle as much as you can. Sometimes you get that yarn barf, but reach into the middle of your skein and you pull out as well as you can to try to get that center pull. And that way it just comes right out and you don't have to spend time unrolling your yarn from the outside of your skein and getting it all floppy. So that's my first tip, is to either cake up your yarn and pull it from the center or grab from the center of your skein, and then your yarn will just pull out really easily and it won't take hardly any effort at all. Another tip I have is how you hold your yarn. If you are spending time putting your hook in the stitch and then wrapping your yarn around and then pulling it through, you're taking a lot of extra steps and movement to work your crochet. The best way is to have your yarn out and ready for it to just glide through your hand. So I've kind of evolved into having my yarn over my pinky, kind of between my pinky and my ring finger, and going over my pointing finger. And it's real comfortable for me because I can just relax my hand. You don't have to pinch these fingers, your ring finger and your pinky finger. You don't have to pinch them because you're just having that yarn running through your fingers. It's going to give it a little bit of tension. And then when you do need to tighten up your stitch, then you can tighten your fingers up to give it a little bit of extra tension. And another thing is that leaves almost all of your fingers except for your pointer finger to use for pinching, which I have found is really helpful when you're trying to get your hook lined up to pull through so it doesn't catch on your work. So let's take a look at how I do my motion when I'm doing my half double crochet, and then I'll show you some of the other stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and get my hand in position, and you can see here's my next stitch. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to insert, and of course this is in slow motion to start off with. So yarn over, insert, and I roll my hook a lot because that helps me get my hook into the right position without having to use my wrist. And so if you have a lot of wrist pain, try rolling your hook in your fingers to get the right position. So let me start over and let me kind of just show you. I'm just going to start doing my stitches, and that way you can kind of watch and see how I work from letting my yarn glide through my fingers to rolling and pulling my hook. Now if you notice, I'm also reaching up and I'm pinching before I grab my yarn and twist. And I do have a double strand of yarn that I'm working on this project. And so there are times when it gets a little bit sticky in there when I'm trying to pull through. So as you can see, I go in, I roll with my finger to grab it so that my hook is pointing down. And then before I grab my yarn to go through the 3 loops. I pinch it right here at the base, and so that holds everything in place. Now, this method has caused me to be a little bit looser crocheter than some of you might be. And when I'm doing patterns that other people have written, I really have to look at my gauge, because a lot of people are tighter crocheters than I am, and if I use their hook size and I use their stitch count, my projects end up being way bigger than what they need to be. So I just have to compensate. I really have to work my gauge swatch, and that way I can get just the size that I need. Usually I have to go down a hook or 2 in size, and that way my project ends up to be the size I want it to be. So this is how I crochet really quickly with the half double crochet stitch. And you can see, let me move my camera over here so you can see where my yarn's coming from. Let me just do some stitches so you can kind of see that as I'm working, that yarn is pulling straight from the center. And of course that one's got a little snag tied up on itself. Usually it doesn't do that, but this is wool yarn, so it catches. And if I want to get, you know, even less tension, I can just pull a whole lot out and just have it sitting there and ready. So let me do some double crochets for you. And basically I do the same thing that I do with my half double crochet. I pinch at the base of where my stitches are so that it goes through a lot easier. Now I don't pinch it so high up that I'm pinching this, I'm pinching down here. Oops, having those 2 strands messed me up right there. That is not wanting to cooperate. So sometimes whenever I'm crocheting with these 2 strands, I really do have to pinch, hold my fingers together closely so that I can get that tension and keep that yarn tight. It really does help when you're double stranding to keep your yarn tight so that you can get both strands on your hook. If I'm doing a single crochet, let me pull some of this out. If I'm doing a single crochet, then there's a little bit different motion. So for single crochet, you just pull it up once and then head on into the next stitch. And you want to make sure that you pull out enough so that you get a large enough loop, because if you have this teeny tiny loop going into the next stitch, your work is going to be tighter. So it's good to have all of this in one motion rather than stop, go in and stop, go in and stop. So it's good to just sit down with your skein of yarn and a crochet hook. Of course, you want to make sure your crochet hook is the right size. You always want to look on your ball band for your crochet hook size, if it includes that. So that way you can make sure that the hook is large enough to pull your yarn through, because that can be very frustrating also if you're a new crocheter, if you don't have the right hook size. So that's just a little preview into how I hold my yarn and how to crochet a lot faster. I hope it helped you.